The first thing I felt was the weight of air filling my lungs. The second was pain sharp, aching, stabbing through every muscle like fire. And the third, emptiness. I blinked against the harsh fluorescent lights of the hospital ceiling, dry mouth scratching like sandpaper. Machines beeped steadily beside me. My body felt heavy, foreign. Tubes ran from my arms. When I tried to move, panic surged. I couldn't even lift myself off the bed. A nurse entered, her eyes widening. "You're awake." Relief softened her face. "You've been in a coma for nearly 2 months." My chest tightened. 2 months. My first thought wasn't about me. It was about who had been here, who had sat by my side. My parents? My voice cracked, fragile. Are they? The nurse hesitated. They signed the visitation forms, but... Her voice trailed off. She didn't finish the sentence. Instead, she adjusted my IV line, forcing a polite smile. "Rest. You'll need strength. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video." But the truth was already gnawing at me. When she left, I stared at the empty chair beside my bed. The flowers in the corner were wilted, brittle, weeks old. The get well balloon hung deflated, sagging toward the floor. Not a single fresh bloom, not a single note, not even a scribbled card. 2 months. And nothing. Hours later, I heard it. Laughter, music, glasses clinking. At first, I thought it was the TV on in the hall, but no, it was coming from downstairs. I asked the nurse, and she sighed. "Your family requested the hospital ballroom for an event. Something for your sister." My chest hollowed out. I pressed the call button. "Bring me there, please." She shook her head. "You're too weak." But I begged, and eventually 2 orderlies wheeled my bed to the elevator. I clutched the blanket around me, body trembling, my heart pounding with something worse than pain dread. When the elevator doors opened, my world cracked apart. There they were, my parents glowing with pride, holding court in a room decorated with ribbons and banners, tables full of food, lights twinkling. My sister Rachel stood at the center in a sparkling dress, tiara on her head, opening gifts with a smile stretched wide. Everyone applauded. And me? I was a ghost at the edge of it all. My dad spotted me first. His face didn't break into relief. No, it twisted into annoyance. He leaned toward my mom and muttered something. I caught the words, "Why drag her down here? She'll ruin the photos." My mom waved a dismissive hand, like shooing away a fly. "Get her back upstairs," she hissed at the nurse. "We're celebrating someone who matters. Don't waste tears on someone useless." The words burned hotter than any IV. I clutched the blanket tighter, nails digging into fabric, throat swelling with tears I refused to shed in front of them. Rachel saw me. For a moment, her smile faltered. Then she smirked, tossed her hair, and lifted her champagne glass. "Don't look so sad," she called out, loud enough for the room to hear. "Not everyone can be a star." Laughter rippled across the guests. My breath came ragged, my body weak, but my mind was sharper than it had ever been. In that moment, I knew I had woken up from more than a coma. I had woken up from years of believing their lies, from years of begging for scraps of their love. And I swore to myself, they wanted to call me useless. They would learn what useless truly felt like. I let the nurse wheel me back upstairs. But while my body healed, my mind worked. Every word they'd spat, every laugh they'd shared at my expense, every dollar they'd poured into Rachel's glittering life, I stored it like ammunition. They thought I was weak. They thought I was finished. They didn't know that surviving a coma was just the start. Recovery wasn't quick. My body was a battlefield, muscles weak, balance broken, every step like dragging chains. But the humiliation from that night in the ballroom burned hotter than any pain. When the therapists pushed me, I pushed harder. When the doctors told me to rest, I forced myself to walk. Each painful shuffle across the floor, I whispered to myself, not useless, not anymore. The hospital became my prison and my training ground. Alone in my room, I practiced standing without support, practiced walking without collapsing, Nurses looked at me like I was reckless, but I didn't care. I had a purpose now. And every night, the same laughter drifted from downstairs. Another banquet, another celebration for Rachel. My parents were relentless engagement parties, networking dinners, showcases for her talents. They basked in her glow while I fought for breath. One evening, when my strength had returned enough for me to walk the hallway without a wheelchair, I overheard my parents talking outside my door. "Doctors say she's recovering," my mom muttered, her tone sharp with annoyance. My dad scoffed. "Recovering into what? She's always been dead weight. Rachel's the one who shines. Why waste money on someone who only drags us down?" I froze. My fingers dug into the cold railing of my bed. Rachel's voice chimed in, sugar-sweet and venomous. "Don't worry, Dad. She won't embarrass us much longer. Once I win nationals, nobody will even remember she exists." My mother laughed, light and cruel. "Exactly. Let her rot. The spotlight isn't big enough for two." The hallway lights flickered. I sank back against the wall, my jaw clenched so tight it ached. The anger coursing through me was pure, electric. Their words no longer broke me, they forged me. The next day, I asked for my discharge papers. The nurse blinked. "Already? You're barely stable." "I'll manage," I said coldly. "I've been managing my whole life." When I returned home, it was like stepping into another world, one where I was invisible. Rachel's photos lined the walls. Rachel in gowns, Rachel holding trophies, Rachel posing with judges. There wasn't a single trace I'd ever existed. At dinner, I sat quietly at the table, pushing my food around while they showered Rachel with praise. She had just been offered a spot in a prestigious pageant, funded by sponsors my parents had clawed and begged for. My dad raised a glass. "To Rachel, the daughter who makes us proud." The words were a knife, but instead of bleeding, I smiled. For the first time, I smiled. Because I realized something. They weren't just cruel, they were dependent. Their entire image, their fragile pride, hung on Rachel's crown. They had built their lives on her stage lights. Without her, they were nothing. That night, while Rachel posted her carefully filtered selfies and my parents gushed over comments, I sat in the shadows of my room, writing. Lists, plans, people I knew she had trampled to get ahead, sponsors who didn't know the real Rachel, judges she had insulted when the cameras weren't rolling. I remembered every cruel thing she had ever said, every arrogant smirk, every time she sneered at me as though my existence was an inconvenience. And I swore I would use the very stage they worshipped to tear it all down. Not with a whisper, not with silent suffering, but in a way that would force them to look at me, really look, for the first time in their lives. They thought I was useless. They were about to find out just how dangerous useless could be. The pageant night came like a storm. My parents were dressed in their finest, faces stretched into smiles so tight they looked painful. Rachel floated around the room like royalty, tiara glinting under the lights, soaking up every compliment. I stayed in the shadows, in a simple dress, my hair pulled back. I wasn't there to shine. I was there to burn their stage down. The moment Rachel stepped onto the stage, the applause was deafening. She twirled, bowed, batted her lashes. She delivered her practiced answers about family values and being raised with love. My parents in the front row clapped so hard their hands turned red. But what Rachel didn't know was that she had to answer one unscripted question, the tradition of the pageant, a question chosen by the judges on the spot. When her turn came, the host smiled politely. "Rachel, what is the greatest act of kindness you've ever shown in your life?" She froze. For the first time, her perfect smile faltered. I watched, my heart hammering as she stammered. "Well, I once donated some clothes." The room shifted. The judges exchanged glances. One even raised an eyebrow. Rachel's voice cracked. She looked toward my parents, who motioned desperately for her to keep talking. And then came the moment I had planned for. I rose from my seat, slow and steady. The hall went quiet. All eyes turned to me, the forgotten daughter they had tried to erase. My voice rang out, sharp, steady, cutting through the silence. Clothes? That's what you call kindness, Rachel? What about when I woke up from a coma alone while you were downstairs drinking champagne? What about when Mom said, "Why waste tears on someone useless?" What about when Dad said I was dead weight? Gasps rippled through the audience. My parents' faces drained of color. Rachel stood frozen on stage, her tiara slipping as whispers erupted from the crowd. The judges leaned forward, their expressions hard. "Is this true?" one asked coldly. Rachel tried to laugh it off. "She's lying, she's just jealous." But the audience wasn't buying it, the sponsors weren't buying it, and the judges, they had heard enough. One by one, the sponsors walked out. The judges marked their sheets. When the results were announced, Rachel didn't just lose. She wasn't even placed. The crown went to a girl she had mocked for years, someone she once called a nobody. And this time, the applause wasn't for Rachel. My parents sat in stunned silence, surrounded by whispers and stares. Everything they had built, every dinner, every party, every dollar they had poured into Rachel's throne crumbled in front of their eyes. As people turned away from them, I stood at the back of the hall, holding myself tall. For once, the spotlight wasn't on Rachel. It was on the truth that they had spent their lives hiding. When I walked out, I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I could already feel their eyes burning holes in my back, their pride shattered, their empire of glitter turned to ash. And for the first time, I felt alive, not useless, not forgotten. Alive because I had made them taste the very humiliation they fed me all my life. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video.